I'm going to be trying to make up one of the door cards for an SL. The hardboard bit here. Now you can buy these bits of hardboard from the SL shop. They're about £50 plus VAT each, but I'm going to see if I can carefully take off each of these staples, each one of these, and see if I can make one up out of hardboard and put it back on the car. The door closing handle is held on by 3 screws. One big machine screw up here, one Phillips screw that goes in at an angle, and another smaller screw that goes through here, and that's got a big washer and a smaller Phillips screw. The side pocket is held along the bottom with a series of clips. Now most of those are broken off on this particular car, and that piece is not available anymore. And then there'll be one screw in the side here as well. And then this handle is held onto that pocket by these 2 very rusty screws. As with most of the screws on this car, we're going to have to drill these out. The thing I'd suggest that you do is carefully take photographs or video the amount of staples that have been used in places like this and here. Just carefully note the position of the staples. Note that there's a piece of vinyl, always a piece of vinyl bent over at that point there and stapled. And once again, how many staples people have used. I say people, that the Mercedes workers have used, because if it's good enough for them for 50 years, it should be good enough for you. So make a very careful note. Here you've got rows of single staples. Along the bottom, just make a careful note of the staples. They're just at a slight angle and they're rows of single staples. See that there's no staple shortage when they put the corners together. Just make a note of how many staples they've used. Similarly, on this corner here, make a note of how many staples they've used. You will kick and curse yourself if you take all of this off feeling really pleased with yourself and then completely forget how it goes back on when you've made up the new card. We'll be replacing all of these trim clips. It's only a few pounds for 20 of them, but if you're not planning on replacing your trim clips, don't just yank them out of the hole, because you'll need these holes to make a template. You have to lever up and twist out, and similarly when you're putting them in, you put them in at an angle and then twist them in and they'll kind of spiral in. When you separate the door card from the vinyl, most people are going to want to keep the vinyl and replace the door card. When you do that, there's a few things that are really easy to break, and one of them is this end fitting here. Okay, here's an example of one that is or has already been broken, and just make a note of how it actually comes out. It's held in by 4 clips at the bottom here, which clip into a plastic channel, and to get those out you've got to very carefully squeeze this together at the ends and try and lever it out without breaking it like somebody has done here. Now after 50 years this could potentially be quite brittle, so just go easy when you do it as carefully as you can. So the way I get these out without breaking them is to actually come in through this gap here with a screwdriver, and then you can kind of lever that side away, and generally once you've got one side done, the rest comes out pretty easily. If you're very patient and lucky, you'll get that piece out without breaking it. If you're very careful, you might be able to get this clip out without breaking it. It's basically a one-way clip though with 2 teeth that, I don't know how well you can see that, 2 teeth that grip into the plastic, so they'll slide down one way, but when you try and take it out the other way, the 2 teeth will lock in. You might, if you get a screwdriver behind there, you can sometimes just wedge it up. Not sure if these are still available. We'll probably have to replace this one. There you go. So you can see these teeth in there on either side. We might be able to reuse that. If that's still available from Mercedes, we'll just get another one, because those clips are quite important in holding everything tight. Just make a note when you take all of this off where it's glued down. For example, this bit here is glued. It'd be really important when you come to put this back together, the notes you've made when you've taken it apart. This plastic piece here is invariably cracked and broken, but we're going to very carefully try and take it off. The vinyl is folded over onto it and then tacked through with those staples, so we're going to try and pull those staples out carefully and not break this any more than it's already broken. Once again, make a note that the vinyl is both glued onto there and tacked. Now I keep saying this, but work slowly, cut the glue very, very carefully without cutting the vinyl. You do not want to rip this vinyl because it's very, very expensive to replace, and although it may look pretty manky and dirty now, this will clean up nicely. Sometimes even when you are super careful and working as slowly as possible, you'll find that things still go horribly wrong. This is just basically disintegrated. It was pretty twisted and manky anyway. Luckily we have a spare one. I'm not sure if those are available, but that's not reusable, unfortunately. I'm going to be carefully remove each one of these rusty staples, and there's quite a lot of them because you do not want to rip that vinyl unless you plan on replacing the vinyl, which is very expensive. So each one of these with a flat blade screwdriver without ripping the vinyl. We've almost finished picking out all these staples from there, and it's not a job for somebody in a hurry. It takes time to do it if you want to avoid ripping the vinyl. Now we've got the trickiest part, which is separating this hardboard from this piece here, and this is held in with these kind of special one-time use clips. Now my advice, and I don't know if somebody's done this before and they've got a better way of doing it, then please do let me know, but my advice is to basically lever this up without trying to bend these tabs, because it's much easier to bend these tabs up straight when the hardboard isn't there. So what we're going to try and do, it doesn't matter if we damage the hardboard slightly, we're just going to get a flat thing and lever up, and once this hardboard is off, we will then one by one be able to bend those teeth back with a small set of pliers so that we can lay the new hardboard in. There's a little bit of metal bracing that goes across that thin bit of hardboard. I don't know why it's got two holes in it, maybe to align it, but let's make a note it goes all the way to the edge of this plastic here. There, after some effort, is the hardboard separated from the vinyl. You're going to need this piece of foam here. We've actually got one from another car that's in much better condition, but you're going to want to cut that off and glue it back onto the new bit of hardboard. You can see here the glue patterns, they're quite random for gluing this bottom bit on. And we're going to clean this up, get rid of any remnants of rust, and then the most difficult bit of this entire operation is going to be bending each one of these little clips upwards like so, so that you can lay the new hardboard on top of that, and then we're going to have to figure out the best way to bend them back down again. This clip out, if it's not too rusted, you just squeeze it together. I've got a little spider friend back, probably wondering what happened to his home. Squeeze it together and that should just come straight out like so. As I say, these clips are still available, so we'll probably just renew them from Mercedes. I'm going to have a go at making up one of these door cards. Now these door cards are still available from the SL shop, cost about 40 or 50 pounds each, but you can go out and buy a piece of hardboard for about 4 or 5 pounds. And I'm going to see how easy it is to actually make up your own and how accurate we can get it, because this has to be millimeter perfect. So the first thing I'm going to try and do is drill out the holes here. I'm using this old one as a template. You want the shiny side of the hardboard up, and you want a new sharp 18mm drill bit, one of these things here. What I found is if you want to get clean holes drilled into this bottom bit of cardboard to clamp a piece of wood underneath it, if you don't do that, what will happen is the weight of the drill will just push the last bit of hole through instead of cutting it round, and you won't get a clean cut. The other thing I would say is make sure you have one clamp on either side of the hole, because if your hardboard is anything like mine, it will be warped and curved, and you want this really clamped down so you get the holes in exactly the right place. These inserts here, we're just cutting them out with a Stanley knife. You have to make a few cuts, but eventually the Stanley knife will cut straight through that hardboard, Obviously use brand new sharp blades, and if you break the tip like I have then, just swap it around and use the other side. That's the first bit cut out. We made one small mistake just here where the original hardboard was broken, and we just pushed down before we had actually cut it. So it's better to cut it on a hard surface rather than cutting it just through the air like that, because if you do push down, this is like cardboard and you'll just rip it, but I don't think that's a tragedy. So far I'm quite pleased the way that's come out. I'm just using an 18mm drill here and then a little hole saw to do these holes and a Stanley knife to cut everything. I've still got to put some holes along the bottom here and some small holes in here. So the way I'm doing these oblongs is just using sharp drill bits and drilling 2 holes and then cutting between the 2 holes. But I'll do that after I've detached the foam from here. Now there were a few bits on the old door card that you're going to need. This piece of foam here, obviously if you've actually got foam that thickness, you just cut it to size and glue it on. That'd be the much easier option, but we don't have any foam, so I'm going to cut this foam off really gently, and the way to do it is to roll it up and just put a tiny bit of pressure on and then run a very sharp scalpel just across the glue so you don't end up cutting the foam, and that seems to work. It clips, and these holes need to be in exactly the right place, otherwise the door card isn't going to fit, and it's almost impossible to measure those holes from the existing door card because this door card is so warped and buckled, and if we get it out by a millimeter or something like that, the whole thing is not going to fit. Having had a think about it, I think what we're going to do is we're going to use the offcut that we have, one strip that's exactly this length, and we're going to match up to exactly this profile here, and then we're going to put that up against the door, and that will allow us to come in behind and mark where the holes are with a felt tip pen, so we will then be able to drill them out of that in exactly the same place. That will be our template, and we could then lay the template over here and drill the holes through the template to make sure we get them in exactly the right place. That's my plan. We've made up this template and we test fitted it to the car, making sure that all the holes here exactly line up, and now we're going to use the template to actually drill the holes in the door card we've made up. The problem with trying to use the existing door card to drill those holes is there's often bits missing, or the door card is twisted and warped, and if those holes aren't exactly right, the door card won't fit. To cut this end hole, we're going to use a 6mm drill, and then we're just going to drill right to the edges and then use a little scalpel to cut that out. The next thing we're going to do is cut these 4 oblongs here, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and those are for this piece here. I don't know what that's called, a magazine holder. Now on some cars like this one here, this is just an old one that we've got from a different car, there are just 2 metal prongs, and it's a shorter version. On the car that we're dealing with, that goes all the way across. It's a much longer one here. Now originally this piece here was actually available from Mercedes as a separate item, because invariably these little tabs here are both broken off or rusted off. So what we're going to do is we're going to be making up our own. We'll take this one out here as a template, and then we'll just see if we can make up our own metal piece here and then slot it into the black piece that we're dealing with and see if that works. But meanwhile we're going to use a 4.5mm drill to cut each end here, and then we'll use a scalpel to cut that out. Once again, whenever you're drilling through hardboard, make sure you've got it clamped flat and that you've got a piece of wood behind that you can drill into so you get smooth holes. Cut these 4 holes and we'll just tidy those up. Now we're going to move on to this here where the end hook goes through. using a very sharp new Stanley knife blade. I'm going to leave this video here. I'm quite pleased with how our door card has come out. It's not 100% perfect, but it's an awful lot better than what came off the car. You can still get these door cards from the SL shop and various other places. They're about £50. The hardboard costs about £4 or £5, so there's a big difference cost in making it yourself. I think if it was the only thing you were doing, you would go out and buy a door card without a doubt, but we're doing a complete restoration of this car. We're trying to keep the costs down. You will need, if you're going to make up your own door card, an 18mm drill, some kind of hole saw. We used an 1.5" hole saw to cut these holes here. Slightly bigger than the original, but that doesn't make any difference. You'll never see that. You will definitely need a new set of Stanley knife blades just to cut around the corners and cut these pieces here out. When you're taking the vinyl off the old door card, be very careful when you do it. This piece here is nearly always broken or nearly always breaks. We can just super glue that back together. This piece here, take it off carefully without cracking it. There are 2 metal clips on there. You can still get these from Mercedes. At the end of the video, I will leave you the part numbers and the costs. You'll need 8 of these trim clips along the bottom. Once again, you can get those from eBay. They're only a few pounds for 20, and you'll need to save this piece as well. Hopefully yours won't be cracked. In the next video, we're going to be making up the little metal piece that goes along the magazine holder there, because ours is completely rusted and that part's not available anymore as far as I'm aware. Each door card has 8 of these clips, and they're pretty expensive if you buy them individually. They're paying about 70p each. You can get them from Mercedes or the SL shop. Cheapest way to get them is just to get 20 of them. You'll need 8 for each door from these guys. Typing in the part numbers at the SL shop and other places to see if you can get these bits cheaper. This is the air duct here that costs £24 for Mercedes. It's half that price from the SL shop. Still expensive, £12.59 including VAT.